Sometimes the difference between life and death in the wilderness comes down to one catastrophically dumb decision or the fatal arrogance of believing you're smarter than nature itself. These are the stories of 5 hikers whose monumentally poor judgment turned routine adventures into preventable disasters. It was July 15, 2016. The pre-dawn darkness over Zion National Park began to fade as Lysander Pierce, a 28-year-old freelance photographer from Los Angeles, made his way up the Angel's Landing Trail. Lysander had built his social media following on extreme adventure photography, often ignoring safety barriers for the perfect shot. His 5,000 Instagram followers expected death-defying content. Ranger Mia Ortega, 42, had warned early hikers about recent rockfall and emphasized staying behind the safety chains. The methodical Park Service veteran had seen too many close calls on the exposed sandstone ridge. Lysander dismissed such warnings, carrying only his mirrorless camera and lightweight tripod toward the narrow spine that dropped over 1,000 feet on both sides. The final approach to the Angel's Landing summit required navigating a knife-edge ridge just 2 to 3 feet wide. Fixed chains guided hikers along the designated path, but Lysander had other plans. As golden light broke over the canyon walls, he spotted his opportunity beyond the safety barriers where loose sandstone created a precarious ledge. Rangers later confirmed that he had stepped onto a sloped section of eroded sandstone that climbers commonly describe as marbles on glass, where traction disappears even on dry days. Lysander set his tripod 8 feet past the chains on the unprotected slope. The rock surface, covered with sandy grit, offered little traction beneath his worn trail runners. He activated his camera's timer function and stepped into frame, backing up to capture more of the dramatic canyon backdrop. On his third step backward, Lysander's right foot encountered the treacherous combination of sand over smooth sandstone. The granular surface shifted like ball bearings under his 165-pound frame. His center of gravity moved beyond recovery as the loose material provided no purchase. His hands reached desperately for the safety chain, but it remained just beyond his grasp. Lysander tumbled backward off the cliff face, beginning a terrifying fall through open air. His body struck multiple rock outcroppings during the descent, each impact causing massive trauma. The fall continued for approximately 8 seconds before he crashed into the boulder field nearly 1,000 feet below. The force of impact caused catastrophic head injuries, crushed his chest cavity, and produced multiple compound fractures. His camera continued its programmed sequence, capturing empty frames where he had stood moments before. The automated timer recorded the aftermath of his fatal mistake. Other hikers discovered Lysander's abandoned equipment at 7:15 a.m. Rangers initiated search protocols while assessing wind conditions. A helicopter crew located Lysander's body in the canyon below at 11:30 a.m. The recovery operation required 6 hours of technical rope work. Medical examination confirmed he had died instantly from massive blunt force trauma. Lysander's final social media post, uploaded automatically, showed him posing dangerously close to cliff edges. The post went live hours after his death, prompting concerned followers to contact park authorities. Lysander's death resulted from a calculated risk that went catastrophically wrong. His pursuit of the perfect shot led him beyond established safety measures onto unstable terrain. The combination of loose surface material, worn footwear, and proximity to a fatal drop created conditions where a single misstep became irreversible. The incident prompted Zion National Park to install additional warning signage. However, the fundamental safety measures Lysander ignored, the chains and designated path, remained the primary protection for thousands of visitors. His story became a cautionary tale about the deadly consequences of prioritizing social media content over personal safety. The camera that captured his final moments served as evidence of how quickly confidence can turn to catastrophe. But Lysander's death was just one of several preventable tragedies that summer. Hundreds of miles away in New Hampshire, another outdoor enthusiast was planning an equally dangerous encounter with nature's forces. It was August 22, 2017. Storm clouds gathered over Mount Washington in New Hampshire as Verity Graham, a 34-year-old meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Boston, prepared for what she considered the ultimate weather experience. Graham possessed an obsessive fascination with extreme atmospheric phenomena that bordered on dangerous. Her colleagues knew her as brilliant but reckless, someone who believed her professional expertise made her invulnerable to the forces she studied. The Mount Washington Observatory had issued severe weather warnings throughout the morning. Forecasters predicted lightning strikes every 30 seconds, winds exceeding 70 miles per hour, and golf ball-sized hail. Steve Larkin, a 51-year-old mountain guide, had spent the morning advising hikers to postpone their climbs. Graham arrived despite these warnings, dismissing them as precautions for amateurs. Graham's arrogant personality had previously earned her workplace reprimands for taking unnecessary risks during storm-chasing assignments. On this day, she deliberately chose to hike into the approaching tempest, excited by the prospect of experiencing a severe thunderstorm from the exposed summit. At 2:30 p.m., Graham began her ascent via the Tuckerman Ravine Trail. The atmospheric conditions deteriorated rapidly as she climbed higher. By 4,200 feet elevation, lightning was striking within a 2-mile radius every half minute. Instead of retreating, Graham continued upward, energized by the intensifying electrical activity. Her equipment choices proved fatally flawed. Graham carried aluminum hiking poles and wore a metal-framed backpack, creating multiple conductive pathways on her body. As a meteorologist, she understood lightning behavior in theory, but her practical judgment had been compromised by her obsession with experiencing extreme weather firsthand. At 4:45 p.m., as Graham crossed the exposed rocky summit cone, the storm reached peak intensity. Wind speeds exceeded 89 miles per hour, while lightning strikes occurred with terrifying frequency. Her weather monitoring equipment would later show 47 lightning strikes within 1,000 feet during the final 30 minutes of her life. The fatal strike occurred without warning. According to the subsequent investigation, a massive electrical discharge found Graham as she stood on the exposed granite summit. The lightning appeared to have entered through her aluminum hiking pole, which she was using for balance against the fierce winds. Witnesses later reported seeing the flash, and the electrical current would have traveled through her body in milliseconds, likely affecting her nervous system and vital organs. The strike caused immediate cardiac arrest as the electrical current disrupted her heart's natural rhythm. The massive energy discharge created explosive trauma throughout her body. Distinctive Lichtenberg figure patterns appeared across her torso and arms, marking the lightning's path through her tissue. Her metal equipment showed electrical damage. Graham collapsed instantly on the rocky summit as the storm continued to rage around her lifeless body. The Mount Washington Observatory staff spotted her motionless form through binoculars at 5:20 p.m. However, the ongoing lightning danger made immediate rescue impossible. The storm moved past the summit area at 8:30 p.m., allowing rescue teams to reach Graham's location. They found her body surrounded by scattered weather monitoring equipment, some damaged by the electrical surge. Medical examination confirmed that Graham had died instantly from lightning-induced cardiac arrest. The electrical current had caused severe internal damage to her organs and nervous system. The irony of Graham's death was not lost on her colleagues at the National Weather Service. A professional meteorologist who understood atmospheric science had deliberately placed herself in the most dangerous possible position during a severe electrical storm. Her weather monitoring equipment had recorded the very conditions that killed her. Graham's death became a case study in the National Weather Service training program, emphasizing that meteorological knowledge cannot override basic lightning safety protocols. Her story serves as a reminder that nature's forces remain deadly, regardless of human understanding or professional credentials. But Graham's tragic end was not the only preventable death that summer. Far to the west, in the scorching heat of Death Valley, another expert was about to make an equally fatal miscalculation about overcoming natural forces through determination. It was June 8, 2018. The sun blazed mercilessly over Death Valley National Park as temperatures soared toward a record-breaking 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Kiernan Dale, a 31-year-old personal trainer from Phoenix, Arizona, stood at the Badwater Basin trailhead with nothing but a single 16-ounce water bottle and unwavering confidence in his physical conditioning. Dale had built his fitness influencer brand around extreme challenges, promoting mental toughness training through deliberate hardship. Park supervisor Denise Park, a 39-year-old maintenance veteran, had posted heat warnings throughout the visitor center that morning. The forecast called for potentially lethal temperatures with ground readings expected to exceed 140 degrees. Multiple signs warned against hiking during midday hours without adequate water supplies. Dale dismissed these precautions as weakness, believing his desert training had prepared him for anything. Dale's stubborn personality had previously led him to complete dangerous desert hikes with minimal water as conditioning. He viewed hydration as a crutch that prevented adaptation to extreme conditions. This Death Valley challenge represented the ultimate test of his philosophy that mind could triumph over matter. At 6 a.m., Dale began his off-trail endurance push from Badwater Basin toward the Panamint foothills, wearing a black tank top. The early morning temperature of 98 degrees felt manageable initially. However, Dale made the fatal mistake of consuming his entire 16-ounce water supply within the first 3 miles. As the sun climbed higher, the desert transformed into a furnace. By 9 a.m., with temperatures reaching 115 degrees, Dale began showing early signs of heat exhaustion. His body's cooling system worked overtime, producing excessive sweat that depleted his already limited fluid reserves. Around 11 a.m., with air temperatures hitting 122 degrees and radiant ground heat exceeding 140 degrees, Dale encountered other visitors who offered him water. His pride led him to refuse their potentially life-saving assistance. He waved them off and continued toward Westside Road, unaware that his decision-making capacity was already compromised. As Dale's core temperature began rising above 104 degrees, his sweating mechanism started to fail. His skin became hot and dry, a dangerous sign that his body's cooling system had shut down. Dizziness and coordination problems made each step increasingly difficult as he stumbled across the salt flats. By midday, with temperatures reaching their peak of 126 degrees, Dale's condition deteriorated rapidly. He left the firm salt crust for softer terrain, increasing his physical exertion when his body could least afford it. His core temperature spiked above 107 degrees, triggering organ failures as cellular damage became irreversible. Approximately 0.4 miles east of Westside Road, Dale collapsed on the exposed desert floor. His body had reached the point where hyperthermia overwhelmed every biological system. Multi-organ failure ensued as his brain, heart, and kidneys succumbed to the extreme internal temperature. He went into cardiac arrest alone on the scorching salt flats. Denise Park's maintenance crew discovered Dale's prone figure during their afternoon patrol at 4:30 p.m. They immediately initiated emergency protocols, attempting to cool his body with available water and ice while calling for medical assistance. However, their efforts came too late. Emergency medical services arrived quickly, but resuscitation attempts proved futile. The medical examiner determined that Dale had died from hyperthermia secondary to severe dehydration, with his body weight reduced by 12 pounds from fluid loss. The tragic irony lay in Dale's expertise as a fitness professional, who should have understood basic heat regulation physiology. His social media accounts revealed his final post from that morning, boasting that Death Valley could not break him just hours before it killed him. Dale's death prompted Death Valley National Park to expand warning signage about summer heat dangers. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the deadly consequences of confusing mental toughness with reckless disregard for survival needs. While Dale's body was being recovered from the desert floor, a travel blogger named Bronwyn Asher was already planning her next adventure. It was September 14, 2015. Monsoon clouds gathered ominously over the Arizona desert as Bronwyn Asher, a 26-year-old travel blogger from Seattle, drove toward Page with her camera equipment and a dangerous plan. Asher had built her online following by encouraging readers to explore beyond designated tourist areas, often promoting rule-breaking adventures. Her impulsive personality and dismissive attitude toward local warnings had become her trademark. Leon Begay, a 47-year-old Navajo guide with decades of experience, had spent the morning turning away independent visitors at the official Antelope Canyon entrance. The patient and safety-focused guide understood the deadly nature of flash floods. Weather reports predicted heavy rainfall upstream, and tribal authorities had suspended all guided tours. Asher arrived in Page on September 13th during monsoon season, specifically targeting the dangerous weather conditions for her photography project. She had researched Antelope Canyon extensively to find unauthorized access points that would allow her to capture images without following safety protocols. Her blog promoted this approach as authentic travel. The morning of September 14th brought ominous weather conditions that any experienced desert traveler would recognize as extremely dangerous. NOAA and Navajo Nation authorities had issued explicit flash flood warnings for the area, with thunderstorms predicted 15 to 20 miles upstream. Despite these warnings, Asher remained determined to access the canyon. At 2:15 p.m., Asher located an unguarded gap in the fencing that protected Lower Antelope Canyon from unauthorized entry. She ignored multiple posted warnings about flash flood dangers and trespassing restrictions, viewing them as obstacles to her artistic vision. The narrow slot canyon stretched before her with passages that narrowed to just 2 to 4 feet in width. Asher descended the metal stairways into the twisting sandstone corridors, marveling at the sculptural beauty of the rock formations. The canyon floor remained dry locally, which reinforced her belief that the weather warnings were overly cautious. She positioned herself in the deepest sections where the famous light beams would create dramatic photographic opportunities. At 2:45 p.m., while adjusting her camera settings, Asher heard a distant rumbling sound echoing through the canyon walls. Her urban background and lack of desert experience led her to dismiss the noise as aircraft, not recognizing it as the warning of approaching floodwater. The sound grew steadily louder, but she remained focused on her photography. The flash flood struck Lower Antelope Canyon at 2:52 p.m. with devastating force. A 6-foot-high surge of muddy water, rocks, and debris entered the narrow passages at approximately 25 miles per hour, giving Asher less than 30 seconds of warning. The initial wave knocked Asher off her feet instantly, slamming her against the narrow sandstone walls with crushing force. The churning floodwater carried her helplessly through the twisting canyon passages, battering her body against rock formations. She suffered multiple blunt force injuries as the torrent swept her 400 yards downstream. Asher drowned in the violent mixture of water, sand, rocks, and vegetation as the flood level rose 12 feet above the normal canyon floor. Her body became wedged against a large boulder in a narrow section of the canyon. Navajo Nation emergency responders discovered Asher's rental car parked at an unauthorized location at 6 p.m., immediately recognizing the signs of illegal canyon entry. Search protocols were initiated, but the ongoing flood conditions made immediate rescue operations impossible. Search and rescue teams found Asher's body at 10:30 a.m. the following day, lodged against rocks 400 yards downstream from where she had entered the canyon. Her camera, discovered 200 yards away, contained time-stamped photographs taken just 7 minutes before the flood struck. Medical examination revealed that Asher had died from drowning, with additional traumatic injuries, including a fractured skull, broken ribs, and severe abrasions consistent with being tumbled through the rocky canyon by violent floodwaters. Asher's death became a cautionary tale used by Navajo guides to emphasize flash flood dangers to tourists. Her story highlighted the deadly consequences of ignoring local expertise and weather warnings in desert environments. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Washington state, a software engineer named Crispin Shaw was planning his own ill-fated adventure, convinced that his intelligence could overcome the brutal realities of winter mountaineering. It was November 3rd, 2017. Snow swirled around Mount Rainier's imposing summit as Crispin Shaw, a 29-year-old software engineer from Portland, Oregon, prepared for what he believed would be a triumphant solo ascent of the Disappointment Cleaver route. Shaw had recently taken up mountaineering following a bitter divorce, throwing himself into outdoor pursuits with obsessive intensity. Despite having only 6 months of hiking experience, he had developed an overconfident attitude that his intelligence could compensate for his lack of mountaineering knowledge. Climbing ranger Aaron Cho, a 33-year-old veteran of Mount Rainier's rescue operations, had logged Shaw's self-registration that morning with growing concern. The meticulous ranger had immediately noticed his inadequate gear list and attempted to warn him about the forecast conditions. Weather reports predicted temperatures dropping to -15 degrees Fahrenheit with sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. Shaw possessed a dismissive personality toward what he called gear obsession, often mocking experienced climbers for carrying excessive equipment. He prided himself on minimalist approaches, believing that mental toughness could overcome any physical challenge. His gear choices reflected this dangerous philosophy, consisting primarily of cotton clothing layers, a lightweight sleeping bag rated only to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and trail shoes unsuitable for winter conditions. The forecast called for a severe winter storm system, bringing Arctic temperatures and life-threatening wind chills. Experienced mountaineers had postponed their climbs. Shaw dismissed these concerns as weakness, convinced that his determination would see him through. At 4 a.m., Shaw departed from the Paradise parking area in relatively mild temperatures of 25 degrees Fahrenheit. The early morning conditions felt manageable, reinforcing his confidence. His cotton base layers initially provided adequate warmth, masking the fatal flaw in his clothing system. As Shaw climbed above 10,000 feet in elevation by late morning, the temperature had dropped to 5 degrees Fahrenheit with increasing wind speeds. His cotton clothing layers began accumulating moisture from perspiration, creating perfect conditions for rapid heat loss. By early afternoon, Shaw had reached approximately 12,400 feet in elevation, where the full fury of the winter storm engulfed him. Ambient temperatures plummeted to -8 degrees Fahrenheit, while wind gusts reached 45 miles per hour. His cotton layers had frozen solid against his skin, accelerating heat loss. Shaw's core body temperature began dropping below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, triggering severe hypothermia. The physiological effects included confusion, loss of coordination, and impaired judgment. Instead of turning back, he continued climbing as his decision-making capacity deteriorated. As hypothermia progressed, Shaw became disoriented and wandered off the established climbing route onto a lee slope where post-holing through deep snow increased his exertion. His body's shivering response began to diminish as his core temperature dropped further. Shaw attempted to create a makeshift shelter using his inadequate sleeping bag and backpack as a windbreak, but his compromised motor skills made effective shelter construction impossible. At an estimated core body temperature of 82 degrees Fahrenheit, Shaw's cardiovascular system could no longer maintain adequate circulation. He collapsed in the snow depression, his body curling into a fetal position. Cardiac arrest followed. Shaw failed to return by his checkout deadline. Ranger Cho initiated search and rescue protocols. The severe weather conditions prevented immediate aerial reconnaissance, forcing rescue teams to wait for a break in the storm. An air search crew spotted a dark object off the established climbing route during a brief weather window on November 6th. Ground teams navigated through challenging winter conditions to reach Shaw's location, confirming the discovery of his body. Medical examination revealed that Shaw had died from severe hypothermia, with his core body temperature having dropped to an estimated 75 degrees Fahrenheit before cardiac arrest occurred. The recovery team documented his frozen cotton clothing, which had to be cut away from his body. Shaw's death became a training case study for Mount Rainier climbing courses, emphasizing the deadly nature of cotton clothing in cold, wet environments. But Shaw's frozen body on Mount Rainier represented more than just another climbing fatality. It marked the end of a summer that had seen an unprecedented number of preventable deaths in America's wilderness areas. Thanks for watching. Ready for more? Click the next video on your screen now.